First question to you. What is your first reaction to Mr. Hefner's comment that the only solution to the nuclear problem, and we quote, is to turn over all our nuclear weapons to the UN, close quote?
Well, I think it's a program for disaster, and I think that I wasn't aware that Mr. Hefner had made that particular statement.
I didn't.
But maybe he would want to modify it if he did.
Yes. The quote, that particular quote came from, I think, the piece that was done on me by the Saturday Evening Post. And what I did say, however, was not unrelated to that. It was not the UN per se, but what I said was that the only eventual possible solution to the problem of nuclear armament, it seemed to me clearly, was in some kind of world governmental control of same. Now, obviously, simply turning them over to the UN at this particular point would be impractical because the safeguards aren't there. But that there is no possible solution in the two alternatives that are offered most often in the popular press today. Neither disarmament nor a number of different countries, and increasingly a greater number, arming for the war that everyone is aware can't be fought, is any solution. And that if we are ever going to reach a point, this is one far more dramatic example than sex, where technology has outrun the social problems. We've got to find a way in which we can live together in a world other than by war and by force.
In the light of the explanation, Mr. Buckley, do you have any comment?
No, sir.
We'll direct a question to you, Mr. Hefner. Wouldn't you agree that there is a direct relationship between the decline of absolute moral standards and the consequent rise of crime and depravity, etc.?
No, not at all. I think that sex crimes come from just the opposite. I think there are more acts of... We're very aware right now of, in this last year or so, a number of acts of violence which at their heart are basically sexual. But this kind of thing comes not from a more, what I would call a more realistic evaluation of or sexual morality, but from basically suppressive attitudes. It's out of sex suppression that this kind of violence comes.
I'm assuming, Mr. Buckley, you would care to comment.
Yes, I know, and everybody knows, that it is extremely hard for criminologists to come up with any conclusive tables on the relationship between violence passively enjoyed and violence explicitly committed. However, I think that it is a matter of common sense, if that word hasn't also been anachronized, to recognize that to the extent that a society is deprived of a sense of reality having to do with what is right and what is wrong, and what is permissible and what is impermissible, a certain kind of self-indulgence is encouraged. That is to say, if you have a society in which it is universally agreed that certain kinds of activity are wrong, that in itself acts as a social and psychological deterrent. And there is no question that during the 20th century, the roots of knowledge about ethics have been considerably uprooted, and that for that reason, even though such tables as I speak of haven't been developed, there is no doubt in my mind that there is some relationship between man's exclusive pursuit of his own desires and his willingness to frustrate popular conventions about violence and sex.
Mr. Buckley, we'll direct this next question to you, sir. Hasn't the new morality, so-called, already displaced the old morality? Isn't, in effect, Mr. Hefner's new morality now the established morality?
Well, it's certainly more established than it was before. In this respect, I agree with Mr. Hefner that it is part of what they call the zeitgeist. It is part of the general solipsism of our time, part of what Dean Fitch refers to as the odyssey of the self-centered self, i.e., I count and nobody else counts under the circumstances. That which gives me a pleasure is in and of itself a venerable objective. So I do agree that the new morality is on the march. What I disagree about is that it's welcome.
Mr. Hefner, you choose to reply?
Well, I think my feeling is that we are very much involved at this particular point in a period of transition. and that the new morality may seem to apply where sex is concerned up to a certain point where, because it is far and away from having been firmly established on all levels of society, where both social and legal considerations are concerned, a young person may suddenly find himself caught up in some of the very real problems related to the traditional morality, and because he's come in conflict with them.
Well, gentlemen, we have just about run out of time for our questions from our viewers. Thank you very kindly.
Well, we have only a few seconds, Mr. Hefner, but I would like to say that I detect a contrast between your tone in explaining the Playboy philosophy here today and your tone in the magazine. Here, it seems to me you're advancing it as an alternative view of human experience, whereas in your magazine, I understand you to advancing it as the only modern, intellectually responsible way of looking at things.
No, not at all. In other words, the philosophy really is just our own particular, mine essentially, and the magazine's evaluation of the social sexual ills, and an attempt to re-examine and suggesting some alternatives.
Well, thank you very much. Very nice to see you, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.